Who am I and who are you? The ultimate questions for who we are as whole beings experiencing on this earth in this human journey. And to find the answers to these questions, we are going to be sitting down and exploring the minds for the wisdom and knowledge of the layers that make up our beings. From the mind, to the emotions, to the body, and to the astral with the light body. We will be exploring these different multi-dimensional aspects of who we are as the I Am presence in this world on earth, in the human experience. We'll get to have fun, cracking smiles, and diving deep into the knowledge with different psychics, intuitives, shamans, coaches, teachers, practitioners, and many more different beautiful conscious souls of the everyday life to gather the information we need in order to unravel these layers and become more aware and present in ourself as the whole I Am presence that we are. And I'm very grateful for this and really look forward to the journey. So thank you all for tapping in and being a part of this. And I am your host, Marcus, aka Christolight, and I will be on this journey with you from the beginning to the end as we travel through the process of clearing layers. Grand Rising and Grand Day, ladies and gentlemen, kings and queens of planet Earth. I, Christolight, am your sacred host for another episode, and actually the final episode for this season of the episodes of this holistic online space here on Instagram Live, Instagram TV, as well as YouTube, Sacred Light Healing and Wellness, the process of clearing layers. We are in our final episode of this season, and yes, there will be a season number 2, and we will be back around. And I want to thank everybody that has supported and been here along this journey of really shedding the layers and diving deep into the micro to macro levels of our mind, body, emotions, and spiritual energy, and what it can look like to holistically heal, restore harmony, and bring balance to our well-being. So for our final episode of this season, season 1 of the process of clearing layers, we're going to dive into the shamanic practices of drumming, as well as the medicine that our special authentic soul guest for episode 10 delivers and carries in this path of walking. Our sacred guest is a shamanic drum crafter as well as a practitioner, Chuck Wilson. Chuck Wilson, originally from Washington. He is now here local in my area in Cincinnati, Ohio. And Chuck has been on his journey for about 11 plus years when it comes to self-awakening and awareness. And he is the owner and co-creator of Wakan Drums. Chuck is very dedicated to these drums and this path of spirit. He had lost his partner, Sandy, and she transitioned to the other side in 2018. And when this happened, this was the transformational time to awaken the Wakan drums into fruition. These drums, they are made with beautiful sacred wooden frames of many different trees to represent tribes, cultures, nations, and trees of the world. Chuck has been collaborating and gathering to do many different healing circles with Reiki practitioners and other energy healers. He's also met a couple different native elders and had the honor to sit with them. He's been to about 3 or 4 different powwows, and he's been to different events like Burning Man to share the medicine of his drums. And he is here today to share with us what the medicine of the sacred, shamanic Wakan drums can deliver to our being, as well as share the experiences and testimonies that he has been able to witness and experience, not only from his own path of walking, but also from those around him that he has connected with to share the drums. So without further ado, our final authentic soul guest of the process of clearing layers.
Oops.
There he is.
Get everything adjusted right. Okay.
Blessings, brother.
How are you? I'm good.
It's really good to see you.
Yeah, this is a interesting forum. It's a little different format than being on the floor of a show and talking to all the people that come in, but it's kind of cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Welcome to the Instagram Live world.
Ah, I see one of my friends over in India. My friend over in Indianapolis, Indiana, is showing or is on watching this. Is good. He's quite a connected person.
Oh, wonderful.
Yep.
Who is it, if I can ask?
DK 240. All right,
Oh,
Rick. I just
okay.
saw that. Yeah.
Welcome in, brother man. Glad to have you here to support. Wow. So, Chuck, man, oh, where to begin? Well, I guess let's begin with how we met. Our experience alone is pretty telling of the type of energy and spirit that is carried through what you do. And for everybody out there, me and Chuck, we met roughly a month ago at a Reiki Plus share. And a Reiki Plus share is a gathering of beautiful, conscious souls here local in Ohio. And we all gather together every other Friday. And we do a potluck, we do Reiki exchange, as well as just hold space and just have genuine conscious connection and community. And we were we were there about 4 weeks ago, and, and I remember I walked through the door. Chuck was standing right there, and he's like, "Hey, you like drums?" And I'm like, drums, you say?" Then he hands me his card, and he's like, "Yeah, I make shamanic drums." And I was like, "Ooh." Right off the bat, I knew there was going to be a special connection there, because me personally, I've had timelines and past lives, if that's what you would like to call it, regarding being a Navajo elder, and that deeply resonates for me. So a little bit later on in the day at the Reiki Plus gathering, Chuck brought out the drums, and I walked over, and he was like, "Here, hold this. Put it up against your chest and tell me what you feel."
That's kind of my standard line. I'm a very low-key practitioner, you could call it. That's kind of my standard line is here. Hold this way and just kind of see what happens.
Yep. And it really speaks for itself. I held it up to my chest, just standing there, took some breaths, closed my eyes. Next thing I know, I could feel the downloads coming in, my eyes starting to flutter, and I could feel my chest and throat area just starting to expand and open. And in that moment, that was when I really witnessed and experienced the spirit of the drums. And after that, for about an hour straight, in the middle of the whole entire gathering, we went to this private room and sat there and connected with the different drums and just connected with the different spirits and downloads that were necessary for us in that space. And ever since then, it has been a really beautiful connection, and we've been able to play the drums together. Chuck was actually there for one of my really powerful Reiki sessions that I received 2 weeks ago at the Reiki Plus gathering, healing my Navajo lifetime, actually, regarding a couple of things. And here we are today, just really grateful to share this space with you, Chuck, and to start spreading your beautiful work and path of spirit that you have taken into your life.
Very much appreciated. Yeah, the way spirits work, I guess a lot of people don't understand or don't really understand just how much they are with us all the time. And, you know, they're nudging us here and they're nudging us here. If we're not looking or thinking about it, they'll go to the other person and nudge them so that the paths combine and things happen. So it's just been a wonderful, let's see, the last 5 years. Yeah, because this last 5 years is basically when the drums started, the concept. So yeah, it's been amazing.
Yeah. So, to really kick things off, I know you said you've been on your spiritual awakening, your conscious path for roughly 11 plus years. And what was what was the experiences like that really led up to you really stepping into quote unquote, the path of self-awareness and consciousness?
Yeah, that's a good one. I, I'm an engineer by background, mechanical engineer, and spent all my life in project engineering. I've been ESP. My mom was very ESP. I was too, and it was just kind of a natural thing. Um, but about 11, 12 years ago, I hit a really deep emotional pit, the deepest I've ever been in. And I've been married, divorced a few times, and although I kept my kids in the divorce, so, there's tumultuous times. But I hit this point, and it was the deepest ever. And so a Reiki friend of mine told me, she said, go see this guy. So go see this doctor. He's a psychologist, but he's holistic. So I went to go see him, Dr. Centeno, up in Washington State, North Seattle, in the Everett area. And poor guy, I was kind of his model patient because, I come in, I sit down, I start telling my story, and he's a couple years older than I am, and he's just fidgeting in his chair, and he's writing, he's looking over his shoulders, and I'm kind of, I'm just trashed anyway, but I'm kind of watching him, I'm thinking, what's going on? And then afterwards, or almost to the end of this event, he asked a question, I gave the answer, and I had this huge ball of white light just come up through my feet, up through my whole body, just up and out. And I never experienced anything like that in ever, and I even read about it. But it was hope and it was love. And from that point on, I saw him about every 2 weeks, or every week, 2 weeks, for about a year. And 4 months into it, he said, you know what happened at that time? And I said, yeah. What? Well, he told me, he waited 4 months to tell me, is that as I was having my event, this big ball of light coming up, about 15 seconds beforehand, this gray shape materialized in between he and I, and it was a large human shape, but it was reaching down with his arms around me. And what Centeno heard was, we have you, I have you, you're not going any further, you're coming back. So all these things happened. And so I went through about a year working with him, and every time I went in the office, it was kind of like, we call that guy Mr. Gray. And Mr. Gray would come in, Centeno would free ride, or he'd get all sorts of sensations, but there was always a topic of the meeting, this is what Spirit wants to talk about today. So at one point, he pointed me over to a Reiki master that was in the same office. So I went to go see Nancy. I told her all the stuff that was happening to me, because I would touch people and they'd get electrocuted, or things would happen and I had no idea what was going on. So I went through this evolution of trying to figure out what was going on in my life. Went to the Reiki classes. Nancy told me that you need to go to class, because she had hardly ever heard of some of this stuff. So I went to class, and I kind of looked at it as gathering tools. I understood more. I started finding people, energy healers, local shamans, and I read a lot of books, and the pieces were finally coming together as to what was going on. And I met Sandy, and she was also turned out to be a shaman. So we were kind of like two peas in a pod. And a lot of things were happening. We were both just expanding like crazy and growing and seeing and vision and working. And then her second round of cancer came in 2017 in August. She had multiple tumors, spine, and all over the place. But she was a real strong, really, really, really strong lady. We used to go up in the mountains all the time, go gold mining. She was a carpenter. She had biceps that you're jealous for, because she was just one tough lady. We go down into the mountains, the bottom of the canyon, we load up on stuff, and she'd always have 20, 30 pounds worth of rocks that she'd bring up out of the canyon because she loved rocks. So anyway, the cancer came. It was 8 months, and she passed. And a lot of people think that, and I think this is true, it takes a lot of time for some people when they do pass, get to the other side, get acclimated, go through a process of becoming back to what we are. And I had this gut feeling that Sandy took her about 10 minutes, and then she had her tool belt on and she was back. And in conversations we've had with her, that was actually the case, because she was standing behind us. The three of us, as we were there attending her in her last hours, last days, she was there. She had it. She pulled out and said, okay, I'm done with this body. But she was there with us as she died. So that was quite an emotional event, and it was a tough one. Even though we both knew where the spirit was going. You can be very comfortable with that, but when somebody that you love passes like that, all that knowledge gets tested, and you still have a tremendous amount of grief to deal with. And for those of you working with people who are in terminal stage, hospice or things like this, as a caregiver, you find that all of your emotions of taking care of somebody like that go behind a dam, because as a caregiver, you have this very large emotional dam, like Hoover Dam, that you keep. And that's where all your emotions go, so you can be the stable one. But when that person passes, the dam breaks. Poof, out it comes. And it's something very difficult to deal with, but you process it. So a couple months after that, I got this push to go to Burning Man. It was 2018, and it was something that we wanted to do. We never did. And I wanted to go to the community called the Shaman Dome, because I was on that path and I wanted to figure out and be around people. Well, it turned out I got accepted, and it was a community that went from 175 down, or 175 the year before, down to 34. So I was one of the 34, which just blew me away, but I found out later that Sandy kind of made sure that happened. The spirits do that. So before going, I got the push, hey, you got to make a drum. And now I know why, because this is the drum that I made, and this is my bear drum. It's my first one, Freya. And during this was probably one of the big events I've experienced in my life, because I found two shamans on Whidbey Island, which was Charlie and Sharon, and went over there, and they had spirits had said, you get a bear drum. That's what you get. Don't argue about it. And as we started the process, Charlie just stopped, and he was a couple years younger than I am. He was in his 50s, and he said, I got to tell you this, Chuck, right now, because I've always seen spirits in gray. Even as a kid, they'd come in, and he was always aware of them, but it was always in gray space. And he said, Sandy's standing right here. She's in full Technicolor, and she's telling me what's going in the drum, what I'm going to do with it, on and on and on. And she was a part of making this drum as a normal conversationalist in this event for 3 to 4 hours. She was there. Sharon and Charlie and the two other people were just in this awe, because they had never experienced anybody making a drum where the spirit of who the drum and why the drum is being made for, boom, pops in. Here you go, guys. It was phenomenal for everybody. So I learned a lot, and I went to Burning Man. I had never worked with the drum before, and so before I went, I met with a lady called Andrea Berry. She's in South Tacoma, Des Moines. She is part Yaqui and a drum maker, very, very talented person, very gifted. And I asked her, what do I do with this drum? How do I've read everything about it, but so she walked me through, and she was a teacher for me for quite a while. And actually, when I came back from Burning Man, I think I must have worked with about 50 or 60 people there, and it was just it was an amazing event. The people that was in the community were very powerful healers. I learned a lot, experienced a lot. So after I came back, it's around November time period, Sandy pops in to have a visit with Andrea, which she had done a number of times, and Andrea can see spirits very well. She journeys people phenomenally. Sandy pops in and says, I'm worried about Chuck. He needs a ceremony. Got to get this. And so they decided to have the one to give me was the Keeping of the Soul ceremony, which is one of the 7 sacred ceremonies that the Sioux have. And that's where the White Buffalo Calf Lady, when she appeared to the Sioux, she gave them 7 ceremonies. Do. And she said, read this book. Figure it out. Hold it. So January the 13th, 2019, she came over with her helper, and we had the ceremony. She held the ceremony for me, plus other ceremonies, and it was phenomenal. It's a 12-month ceremony where you are committing to care for the soul of the person, the family, the friend, whoever it is that has passed. In the context of you're making sure that they know they're still very much loved, they're thought about. You give part of your food every meal. There's a lot of different things you go through, but it's a year's process. And even though I knew she was right here and she didn't need any help because she told me, either do this or I'm going to kick your butt. What's for you to do? So it's been amazing. So a couple months into this ceremony period, I started getting these communications, these ideas, these thoughts that I had to figure out how to make a sacred drum so that all of the links and the spirits and the power, you could call it, the spiritual gateway stuff that she put into this drum could be put into other drums. And the other drums means I had to figure out how to make these things because they weren't simple drums. They had to honor the tall people, which are the trees, the sacred trees. They had to tie to and integrate with other tribes, cultures, like the Buddhists and Siberians and a lot of things, the forest people, and I had to figure it out. She and others were very helpful in giving me ideas, but I ended up making these drums, as you can see on the website, but I use about 24 different woods, and the medicine wheel has about, I think there's 14 different ones in the medicine wheel themselves. So that's the idea was posed to me, figure out how to make these. The reason they're important is because what I saw at Burning Man and what I see all the time is I give somebody a drum. Here, hold this for a minute. Poof. A lot of times I see people just go off in journeyland, their eyes get really big, and they say, oh my God, this person just came in, or I had these feelings, or something came up, and I'll see people in tears because emotional issues they've been dealing with all of a sudden pop up in their right in front of them, and they understand it. So I came to the awareness that the drum program, it's called the drum program, the Sacred Drum Program, that was Sandy's plan. And I was probably part of it, and as other people were too, when we were sitting back on the other side before we reincarnated on Earth this time. We're going to do this. So she has been a force unbelievable in making this happen. She's the drum mother. She's in every drum that's out there. There's been many people that have come back from Journey with eyes wide saying, there was this lady, and this is what she said, and here's a message for you. She helps a lot of different people all the time. So the purpose of the drums, the challenge was to figure out how to make these things and then to get them into people's hands so that all the links that she put into Freya would go in every single new drum that would come out for the keeper, the people that would hold the drums and have them and use them for their own life. But that was the challenge. Figure out how to do it, and then do it such that you've got something that's represents so many. And so, yeah, Marcus, that was kind of the lead in my life path to coming to the point of figuring out, one, how to do something I've never done before, because I had never made drums, let alone made drums like I do now with all these woods. I did a tremendous amount of research into sacred woods, which tribe, which culture, on and on, trying to figure all this out and pull it together. So that's kind of the background, how I got awakened, my awakening point, trying to understand and evolve, and then getting to the, and losing Sandy, and then getting to the point of her coming right back and saying, buddy, we're not over yet. We got lots to do, and here's what you're going to do. So let's get busy. It's an interesting story. I mean, I haven't run into too many people that have similar stories of working with their past. I mean, their life partner, their twin, in such a manner. It's kind of fun. Have you run into people like that, or?
Actually, I haven't exactly heard of something like that to the degree of what you're experiencing on your journey. And I gotta say, thank you for sharing and being vulnerable with us and coming on today to be our guest and really give us the insight and the wisdom of what's been taken upon your path, as well as these, I guess you could say, very unique and rare experiences that you've come across.
Yeah.
So, with all this being said, you were talking about, the trees and the honor that you like to put into using the different woods. Now, if you're open to it, would you like to explain some of the woods and the connections behind the way you create the frames?
Sure, I can do that. I just happen to have a prop, one of my drum frames. It's this particular drum, when I moved to Ohio, you can see it's primarily orange. And there's a wood called orange osage. And it's a regional wood of the Midwest, eastern part. But it's a wood that's used by a lot of different tribes. It has its sacred aspects of it. It's got its medicinal. But it's also a wood that makes a phenomenal bow. And it's been used for making bows for as long as people have been over here using the wood. But yeah, let me show you a couple of the woods that are in here. On the medicine wheel part itself, there's a north, south, east, west. So we'll start with the north. I'll mess with my phone here as best as I can. I know how to do this. This works good. Okay, so the white wood itself, that's holly. And the holly, I researched, has a lot of different aspects of meaning, but the one that really resonated to me was the fact that is the wood that is purported to be part of Odin's spear shaft. And so I went, oh, I like that one, because that ties to the Nordic, ties to the Norse, it ties to Odin, it ties to Lady Freya, a lot of different ones. So that's the tie to the Nordic. This next wood is red Nara. Now, red Nara is a wood that's used in Southeast Asia quite extensively on the altars in Buddhist areas. And it's a lot of the wood that they use when they're carving all the ornaments and the trim that's on altars and on objects and things like that. So that, to me, goes back to the Buddha. And I was gifted one time in Journey Space to experience the Buddha energy and be put in the form and the formless. That's very, very important to me. This other wood is Siberian larch, and that's on all four corners of the medicine wheel, because I've discovered, and there's a book called Sacred Trees, and it's by Nathan, I need to remember his last name, but phenomenal book. Siberian larch goes back to the Tungus tribe in Siberia, and in the book it describes that that's now an accepted location of where they think the word shaman comes from, a derivation of the word shaman. Well, that's also the wood that they used to make their shaman drums. And when I found that out, I just went, holy moly. Wood goes in the drums. And so I found a source down in LA, Russian, because it comes from Siberia. And went back and forth email a couple times, and he finally said, okay, this much for for shipping for the samples. We'll send you samples for free, but here's the shipping. Will you pay? And I said, yes, no problems. Instant I sent the email, poof, I'm in journey space. Boom, I'm in gray space, and I'm looking off in the distance, and I'm seeing this line of people that go off as far as I can see, and they're in winter gear. They're obviously Siberians, they're Asian descent, Mongolian, and they have their hoods back. And I see all these happy faces going back as far as I can see them. And I feel this immense energy coming in of just happy. They were very, very happy. And I had tears. I just sat there in space. I don't know how long it was for, but when I came back to reality, this reality, it was just an amazing experience. And so I knew that was the right choice. So another wood here is ash. And ash, if you go back into the tree of life, Yggdrasil, that's, for the most part, everybody, that's the wood that Yggdrasil is made from. That was important to me, not only going for the Norse, but when we made Freya, the bear drum, one of the things Sandy said is that she was putting a direct link to Yggdrasil into the drum and into me. And that had to be in the north. And to me, the north is my prime point. And so when you go around to the east and the west, so the yellow part here, though, the colors are really my interpretation and how I wanted to use the medicine wheel. The colors came from the Sioux, for obvious reasons. And I'm not native. In this life, I'm not native. But, like many of us in past lives, there's been, we've lived all over. We've done here, we've done that. I've been in many tribes. I've been medicine man many, many times. They tell me. One person popped in and said, yeah, Braveheart. Well, you got killed in that battle. Oh, that's great. So you never know. But anyway, so that's, in this life, I'm not tribal, but having the ceremony kind of brought me into that realm. So these particular drums I make these days, the orange sage is the yellow. And so you get into the east-west, and they're the same. There's Siberian larch, there's red western cedar. A lot of tribes use that for many different things. And then there is oak, and then there is ambrosia maple, which is kind of more of a wood from this end of the world. In this particular generation of woods that's in the medicine wheel, I've included 4 new woods that are tied back to the Cherokee, because I got an email one time where this lady said, I loved your drums, and could you incorporate something from the Cherokee in these drums? And I researched it, and there's 7 sacred woods. I could find 6, and I already had some in the frame anyway. One I could not find was sourwood, and that's a southeastern U.S. wood. And if you ever find honey that's made from sourwood bees, supposedly it's really, really good, and I have to find some. And I found some. I should have bought it, but I will buy it. I could not find that wood. So anyway, I incorporated that. So I've got all 6 of the 7 sacred woods of the Cherokee in the medicine wheel now. There's beech, there's black locust. Again, I had oak, I had maple, birch, and I think there was another one. So in the white layer here, I've incorporated a couple of those extra woods from the Cherokee. So then if we go to the south, because the east and the west are the same, but the couple of special woods in the south, there is dogwood. And dogwood is the tree of life for the Mohawk. And then I have the couple of the Cherokee in there too. And then the black layer, I used to keep as black walnut, but in a lot of the drums, there's a streak of a really, really black drum, or black wood, which is this one, and that's African wengi. And that's a wood I found. It's very hard. It's kind of like an ebony wood, but it comes from Africa and has some very powerful spiritual healing meanings. And the one thing I've done is, as I research the woods, I always look up metaphysical properties. What's it mean and what tribes they use and everything like that. And on my webpage, there's 4 pages of sacred woods and kind of a list of who does what. And then the red is Padauk. That's a Central America, South American wood. And I usually throw something in like Purple Heart because it's kind of the same way. So anyway, that's kind of the medicine wheel. But, as I make the drums, these are all rings. And so as I put the first ring down, which is the medicine wheel ring, in the glue, I'll put certain things. The first thing I put in is magnetite, and that's black sand. It's black sand from one of the beaches where the Columbia River flows into the Pacific Ocean. And black sand is very dense. It's magnetic. In that beach, there's little fine gold particles in it. So Sandy and I used to go there and mine for gold. We just run it through a sluice, play in the waves, which are really big. So I put a little bit of the magnetite in the glue, and that's my tie and link to the oceans, very direct tie to Mother Earth and to that particular memory of what we used to do. And so another thing that I put in, it's a kind of a red clay, and it comes from Brazil. It's called kimberlite, or red kimberlite. And it comes from an area that's kind of a surface deposit, similar to Sedona, apparently. But it's a powerful mineral. But so I put that in the glue, and to me, that's the link to South America and cultures there. And I know one thing that Centeno used to see visions of me in a dress as a Peruvian shaman. So past lives there. So another thing I put in too is a little bit of shungite. A friend of mine up in Mount Vernon, Washington, runs a store called Mystic Experiences, I think. Big store, really neat guy, and he's connected. So he gave me a big jar, and he said, use this in your drums, there's a lot there. So I put a little pinch of shungite into the glue. And then the last thing I put into the glue is a mineral that comes from the serpent mounds here in Ohio, which is this massive, it's the biggest serpent mound in, I think, in North America. It's like 1,300 feet long. It's this big, beautiful, but it's a very sacred ground. I've been there numerous times. We've done drum ceremonies there. And there's a rock shop. And we took the drums to the rock shop one time, and we're talking to the people there because there's a lady that's Terry sings with the Ravens, I think is her name, but she's Sue. And Frank, I think his name is. Showed him the drums, and at the end of it, he just came up with a handful of this gray rock, and he said, here, put these into your drums. That's the rock that's the substrate of the big meteor crater that the mound sits on, of course, many hundreds of feet up. But so to me, that little bit of earth ties to the region, but it ties to the mound builders and mound builders wherever they are around the world, and to Mother Earth. So along with the woods, there's the minerals that I put into the drum, into the glue, and yeah, that's kind of a quick rundown as to what goes into making these. It takes a bit of time.
Very beautiful. Thank you for taking the time to thoroughly explain that for the collective. I know you've told me multiple times now the process, and it never ceases to amaze me just how beautiful the spirit and energy is of just hearing about the process and knowing the process of dedication, sacredness, and honor that you really put into each one of these drums.
Let me interject a little bit. There's a ceremony. A lot of times I'm very casual with my relations with my spirit family, my buddies. But there's one thing I learned from reading a book from Sandra Ingerman, and it's called Ceremony. And when I read that book, I realized, yes, we all know we walk with spirits, and then they come in and out, and you can talk with them. But there's there is an importance to ceremony. A ritual that's a formal ritual, it's like a formal dinner. And that is important to their side, to our side. when I make the drums, I have all these rings ready to go. I have a ceremony that I start. I do the smoke stuff, and Sandy is the mistress of ceremonies, and I start with her. And I start going down my roster of all the spirits that I know of that are part of the drums, that are part of the experience. And even now, as I'm talking about, my fingers all tingling. I ask them all to formally come in and be part. And my house is always so full. Many times as I'm going through my own ceremony, I'm usually by myself, I can't talk. I hit some places where their presence is so intense, I kind of have to take a moment, take a breath. Sometimes I get tears because their presence is so palatable, and so we go through that. And part of the ceremony, though, I ask the spirits to make sure. I see you're saging. That's pretty good. You're probably feeling them all around yourself too. I asked Sandy to make sure that all of the spirit guides for all of the future drum keepers for each of the drums are now aware of, and please participate in this ceremony. And I asked for the spirit guides for anybody who's going to hold the drums, hear the drums, or keep the drums. Be aware that those drums are now created, and please come in and be part of ceremony. I go on for a while on it, and then I finally say, okay, let's get to work. But that's my official ceremony. When I put the hides on the drums, I'll speak words when I do that too, because the hides, it doesn't matter if I have a deer, it represents all our relations on the earth. It doesn't matter if it's one animal or the other animal or synthetic. It represents everybody. It's kind of like the trees. There's hundreds of sacred trees. And I was really in a quandary trying to figure out how am I going to do this. And I realized, okay, the final short list, all you trees, you represent everybody. The same with hides on the drum. You represent everybody. So sometimes people kind of get really hung up on what they want, but just my 2 cents.
Thank you. And yeah, I think it's very important. I'm really glad that you shared, how it is ceremony for you when it comes to creating these spaces and creating these forums. And it really puts a really deep awareness on the type of energy and intentions that are brought into this.
The purpose of the drums isn't to go out and sell a bunch of drums. Never has been. And I've given a number of drums away to people just because all of a sudden I get the feeling, you need a drum, here, have that. You need it. And they need it on their path. I have seen so many times of the drums having such a positive impact on people. I've had people that have had their life's awakening holding a drum. So the purpose for me is to make as many as I can because they have people's hands that needs them. And it's, you spoke about passion, from a passion standpoint for me, that is my passion. My passion is to help other people on their path with what I've been gifted and instructed to do. It only takes one time when you give somebody a drum, here, hold this, and watch a transformation. You feel it in your heart, you feel it in your soul, you have tears because you can feel all the emotional energy coming through you that the person's experienced. Sometimes I walk into the same journey they are and watch them as they're experiencing their drum. You go through that one time, you realize that's my job. That's my purpose, my path. This is an amazing gift. And if you told me this 10 years ago, 5 years ago, I would have said, really, that's kind of an interesting story. I don't think so. But yeah, so that's my passion, is to help as many people as I can on their spirit path. Answer questions as I can. I've studied with a number of shamanic people, that shamans. I've talked to a number of tribal folks that are, elders, and it's it's very telling when somebody will walk up to you and just look at you. You've never spoken to them before, but the first thing they say is, "You're a shaman, aren't you?" And you, yeah, I am. They are too, because they saw you. They knew what you were, and it's an amazing path that I'm on. And I'm very grateful, and that's what I work on every day. It's kind of like that's what I do.
Thank you so much for what you do, Chuck. It's been an honor so far for myself. And I'm going to kind of dive in another aspect of questions here is, what are the effects that these beautiful drums can have on us mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually? Now, you can share, testimonies or experiences and stories that you've witnessed from other people's healings or your own self as well to answer these questions. So just to rephrase it again, what kind of effect can these drums have on bringing harmony and healing to our mind, body, emotions, and spiritual energy?
Yeah, it's I'll condense this down, because once I get going on a story, it kind of leads to the next one, to the next one, to the next one. But in the books, a lot of books written on spiritualism, spirit path, shamanism, very many different cultures. But drums have always been more or less a tool of a shaman or a healer to set a rhythm, and that rapid beat helps a person drop in, I think, a state, where it calms the mind, it gets you in this journey space, and that. But it's for the patient, and it's also for the shaman. It helps the shaman pop into journey space and go seek the parts. If you're doing a soul retrieval, seek the parts for the person that you're working on, or ask the spirits for a vision, or do that. But that's the person doing it, isn't so much the patient. What I found from the day one, you're talking about a micro level on this, the drums are the gateway. You don't need a middleman. You don't need somebody interpreting. I've had people look and hold the drums, and they tell me the exact same thing. What they are, they're your own. It is a gateway. You hold the drums. I've seen this so many times with many people. Spirits come and talk. They have experiences. I've seen people where they'll hold the drums and they'll close their eyes. I feel this big blast of emotion coming through me, because I'm feeling what they're doing. They may have an emotional issue, that something they've been wrestling with for years, something deep, and they haven't figured out what it is yet. I've seen people hold the drum, and all of a sudden this emotional issue pops right up in their face, and they see it, and they may have spirit talk to them, or they'll see it themselves and realize what they need to do. I've seen that type of effect on people. But I have a kind of a funny story a little bit, but it's kind of like, here, this is a sacred drum, right? Okay. Hold the sacred drum. Well, if you accept a sacred drum, you're giving permission for the spirits to come and have a talk with you. Because otherwise, if you just don't give permission, they're not going to do anything. And I find that's a key part, because long ago in a conversation that I had with our folks on the other side, it takes a person to give permission. If you give them permission, they'll come and have a chit-chat with you, or they'll do stuff. But otherwise, they won't. They'll just say, gosh, I wish we could do something, but you got to ask. You hold the drum, you just ask them. So that's kind of how that connection with spirit works, but it kind of cuts the middleman out. I have seen people that'll hold the drum and go, oh, that's pretty. They don't feel anything. I've had people hold the drum that kind of feel warm and fuzzy, and they kind of think that'd be kind of nice to have. See those people. Then I see the people. There's a friend of mine around here. His name's Jeff. I made a drum for him, just the first one I made here in Ohio. He was over talking to my mom because he used to take care of my mom and dad's property. And I came into the house and he was talking to my mom. We were talking spirit stuff. He's a big guy. And I said, I got these drums. So I gave him one to hold, and he was practicing meditation. So he holds the drum, goes in space. He kind of looks at me funny. He goes, well, I'm seeing all these colors. I'm seeing this and the other. Okay, I got another one. So I bring Freya out. Hold this drum. Poof, he's down. Eyes go crazy. He comes back, and he said, for the last 10 years of his life, he's had all these questions about spirit, these experiences. He didn't know what they were. When he held the drum Freya, and I just sat and watched him, didn't say anything, he was taken deep into a white room, and his grandmother was standing next to him, talking on his behalf to a council of spirits in white. And they said, it's your time. This is what we want you to do. And they gave him instructions, pointed to some people, go with those people. For him, that was just, everything came to an awakening point of his adult life, and he's in his 50s. And woof, and he handed me the drum back, and he goes, oh my. He started talking about it. So I've seen those experiences. It all depends, but that's the coolest part of the job. You know, you give somebody something, and they have this experience. Their spiritual path, they see clarity, or they have this knowing that the spirits really are there, and they feel it, and they can give it to other people, and they can watch them have experiences, and that's kind of the macro and the micro, and there's so many waves that the drums make in the hands of people who are their keepers, and that again is another focus of what I do, is to get as many keepers out there, because they make circles, they make circles, they make more circles, and more people that are awakened or know more about who they really are spiritually and personally is really important for all of us, you know, as a human race.
Well said. Yeah, I definitely agree. And yeah, it's so amazing the connections that are made through these drums. I know prior you had shared an experience with me where you know, some people are contacting and connecting with family members on the other side to get the awareness.
I've got my favorite one, and I'll interrupt you on that because I can see where this particular experience was phenomenal. And I hadn't started making the other drums yet. I just had Freya, and I was at a show in around Albany, Oregon. It's called the Rashani Fair. And a big fair. I mean, it's a big metaphysical fair. Lots of people. And I was sitting in my little booth, and I had my little Reiki table behind me, and my little banner said Shamanic work. And I kept watching the crowd, and this one young girl, she was probably about 12, 13 maybe, but she was a little bit on the downside. But she kept circling. And all of a sudden, she came zipping into the booth, and she's, what do you do? And I go, do this. How much does it cost? And she's reaching into her little purse, trying to find some money. And I said, just sit in the chair. Don't worry about it. Sat in the chair, gave her the drum. Hold the drum, close your eyes. Boom, she's down, and I'm starting to feel stuff. I'm going, oh, good God, what's going on here? And I look over to the practitioner to my left, and this lady, she's looking over at me and the drum in the booth, and she has this look on her face like, what's going on over there? And I'm just going, whoa, something's happening. So the little girl was down in trance probably for 4 or 5 minutes. And I was sitting behind her, and I was feeling a lot of energies. And I was getting a little worried because it was really intense. And then she woke up, and she looked at me, and I took the drum back, and I said, you all right? She was just nodded her head. Yeah, I'm fine. She has tears. I have tears. And I said, can you tell me what happened, if you would? And she goes, well, she closed her eyes, and Out of the crowd walked her father, right up to her. Behind the father was her grandfather. They stood there, and had a long conversation with his daughter. And then she came back, and I said, wow. And she was telling me the story. She goes, and my father, he died last week. Okay. I always get connected to that point when I tell the story, because seeing somebody that just, holding my drum, and, their father just died the week before, and the grandfather, and they're there to tell her, it's okay. We're fine. You're fine. You're doing great. This is what your life's going to do. Don't worry about it. Don't be grieving. This is great. She gave me the drum, told me the story, and off she was. And that's so stuck in my mind at that point. It was just phenomenal. Again, it's one of those rewards. It's the greatest reward that I've experienced in my life, is seeing people have those sorts of experiences. And a lot of times I don't have anything to do with it other than give them the drum and say, here, hold this.
Yeah, that's so incredible. And if you're open to it, there's one other experience that I would like to have you share for the collective, and it's the one that you talked to me most recent about the other day at your home, was your last Tuesday Reiki session with a client that you've been working with, and
that was
the type of amplification that you were able to bring to the Reiki group with the drums.
Yeah, everybody learns all the time. I learn all the time. Every experience that I have, I learn something new that I haven't experienced yet. The Reiki group's been just phenomenal. There's the elder lady that runs the group, Gwen. She invited me to be part of the group. So she's always sitting there. And when I'm drumming on people or whatever, she has this funny look on her face. She's kind of looking up at me, looking at the drum. And what she sees with the drums is I'll be working on somebody, drumming all over them, and going over and doing what I want. But what she sees, she is seeing swirls of different colors of energies that form around the drum and then go right into the person. Or they come out of the drum and the whole person has been coated or covered about 3 inches deep with blue light. She's seen lights coming out of the bottom of this particular, all my drums as I'm working on them. There's just beams of light that go into the person. And I haven't run in, that's phenomenal what she sees. And I know that's to help me focus, learn more about what I'm doing. There was a guy that came in about 3 or 4 weeks ago. I'll call him Fred. And well, Fred had a stroke about 5 years ago, and his wife brought him to the group to see what could be done. And it turns out Fred back then was a Reiki master, but his stroke was on his left side, and he could hardly speak. He had struggled to come up with a word that he wanted to say, and he was really getting depressed, had a hard time. I think he used to be a firefighter or something. So the first time that we worked on him, a lot of drumming. And when I'm working on somebody, many times I'll put one of the drums on their chest, have them hold it, and I'll use another drum and work on the person. That the first time we worked on Fred, there's a lot of us there in the room, and there's some people in that group that are phenomenal. This is the first time I've seen healers of that quality, the type that go into the energy bodies and they see, or they're totally connected with spirit, and they'll channel what for the person. And it's been a phenomenal learning experience for me to be around that quality of persons. So anyway, he came back the next week, Fred. He can talk. He's happy. His words come together he's still a little off, but it's nothing like trying to figure out one word. He's speaking, and he is so happy, and his wife is so happy. I've never seen such a step function of improvement of somebody. So he laid on the table for the second time. And I started working on him, and the other folks came over. But I had one of the drums on his chest, and I was using another one, and I was working kind of over his head. I was beating, listening, and I kind of journeyed into his head. And this particular journey is important for me as well as him. But the reason it's important to me is I was in journey space, and I kind of envisioned the cosmos. And as I was drumming, I was seeing the stars of the cosmos, and I was thinking, okay, this is inside of his head. Those are the neural points in his head, so we need to make more. So I started tossing little stars up, more stars into his brain, I get this feeling, and I look over to the right. Sandy's there. And it's the first time in a healing event she has come in, visible to me, in spades, and she's looking over at me and just kind of smiling. She has buckets full of stars that she's tossing up all over the place, And so we're both in there. We're both tossing stars all around. Well, then I hear somebody light up a sound bowl, and I kind of come back a little bit, and I point, do it on top of the drum that's on his chest. So they did, and they're doing the sound bowl. As I hear that, and I'm still in journey space, I'm starting to see these little gold filaments and silver filaments start forming, and they're connecting to all these stars. And I'm seeing this happen. And as all of us were working on it, that was my contribution. Other people were working in different parts of it. And Fred is just phenomenal recovery. Matter of fact, he came over to the house the other day because there was a drum that called to him. And so he went away with his own Wakan drum as a companion. You read about these things in books, but, that massive of a change in somebody from a physiological, from a recovery from stroke, I had never seen that in person. And it was magical, just magical. Combination, everybody's energy flowing in, the interaction of the spirits, what can you say?
Yeah, that is, wow. I mean, it's really hard to put words to it. Words can't even really put justice to how beautiful and amazing that is.
Oh, and watching Fred's face, his whole personality is lit up. I mean, you look at him now and speak with him, he's still a little slow, but he projects positive. He's back to where he was before his stroke from just a human standpoint, and those are the reward points that all of us who are in the healing business, shaman business, the counselor business, being a friend with somebody that needs help, you sit with them, you listen to them, you help them. That's the level of reward that when you're helping somebody else, that's what everybody should really be working to do, I guess. I think that was something my spirit people told me to say.
Well, thank you. Greatly appreciate that. And
there's some words of wisdom I'll say too. That this is one saying that I think everybody resonate with, and it was given to me. And the saying is, your greatest strength is your vulnerability, quote unquote. So everybody who's watching, write that down. Your greatest strength is your vulnerability. It has a powerful meaning for everybody, but it's very true.
Absolutely. That's amazing, And what really stands out to me about that, without going too deep into it, is number one, it's a release. You get to release what's stored and stuck inside of you. And then number two, you get to bless and gift and give back to the world around you by doing that.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful balance right there. It's so divine, so beautiful.
Yeah.
All right, Chuck.
One last thing with the drums and the circles and the circles and the circles, there's a a testimony on my website by a lady called Tracy Ireland. Read that one, because she's an extraordinarily talented lady. But she's one of many that I hear from that say, I'm so grateful that our paths cross, and your drum is, you made a drum for me, because it's done this much more for my spiritual path and the work that I do. That's the whole name of the game, is to get as many people helping other people, in ways that they're supposed to.
Yes, I agree. And we have a couple questions from the viewers, our wonderful conscious viewers out there.
Sure.
And the first question for you is from Energy Soul Child, a sister from the UK. She asked, how many different designs of drums have you made, and do the symbols amplify them?
When I make the drums, the multi-wood drums, I kind of consistently stick with it. There's a medicine wheel in every one of those. I change the different woods and different layers. This is the first batch of woods that I've made that have just been a solid like this. But I kind of try to go multiple ones woods. However, a little while ago, I got to thinking, well, when I go to thinking on this sort of stuff, I know the spirits are saying, hey, Chuck, listen to us. We're trying to tell you something. And what they were saying, these are fairly expensive drums. These particular drums, I usually sell them they go from anywhere from $450 to $650 to $700. And if there's artwork, there's additional on that. So they're not inexpensive. But what I got told, figure out how to make a steam bend drum, one species of wood that will represent still all the trees. Very much more affordable. And I've just started making these, and this is kind of the first production one that I figured out how to do. But on the inside, there's a prayer from the Lakota, and then there's another drum prayer that I put in here. I put inside, using an engraver, a laser engraver, I'm putting my power animals, I'm putting the spirits, I'm putting my logo, which has the bell and the dorje, the Yggdrasil, white buffalo. I'm putting the Om Mani Padme Hum symbols in Sanskrit from the Buddha. So this one, it's my intent to have something very similar or very, very affordable for people. Like when I go to powwow or just normal, this is just a very affordable drum, but the symbols mean many things, and I think it's important. On this particular drum, the symbols on the outside are from the Peruvian people. And when I met Don Eduardo, we got to talking, and the whole idea about putting the Peruvian symbols around the drum on the outside for people to see, spirits like that. I say that somewhat facetiously, but in kind of humorous way, but I know darn well when you're putting a symbol as an acknowledgement to a spirit or group of spirits, they're very happy. And I don't know how else to explain it. It isn't such that it's putting power or anything into it. It's a formal acknowledgement of love to the spirit you're thinking about. And there's a circle there that's very important. Yeah, trying to figure out what they're trying to tell me. So to answer your question, there's two different types of drums I make. I make the drums that are the multi-wood, many woods, medicine wheel, and then I just started making the single wood drums with engraved symbols on them. Now, in that vein, there's a friend of mine that if you go to the website, there's a drum maker, or drum bag maker, and it's Michael Williams, and he's a Tlingit. He's an Alaska tribal guy. I met him at my first powwow. But I've just finished his first prototype. He has his particular form art that he created of his tribe. And so what I'm going to do is make frames for him with his tribal icons around the inside of his own drums. And he is so happy because that's his identity of what he's working with people about, Northwest Alaska tribal. And yeah, so I'm going to offer that too to people. If they want a specific frame with their specific icons, I can do that now. I can't do that with these drums. I mean, there's a certain way that I make them, and it isn't in a flat plate. You bend it around. They're not bent. These are bent. I can do that. So that answers your question, I hope.
Well said, Chuck. Thank you. And what sizes do you have? I know you have different size drums that you make.
They go from 12-inch up to 20. I've actually made a small powwow drums that are 20-inch diameter, about 12 deep, and they have a real powerful sound. But so yeah, those are the sizes that I do. And you can't, you know, these are kind of, it might be a little bit half-inch one way when you. It isn't going to be exactly a factory dimension drum. I mean, they come out as they do. So, sorry.
Wonderful. And then somebody asked you also, do you ever let anyone play your personal drums?
I do. When Freya arrived, and when I went to, her name was Robin Romeo, and she was a shaman in Seattle. I went to her just before I went to Burning Man, and she was one of the, 15 years ago, she was with the Four Winds, and she was very talented. One of the things the spirits told me, specifically, they said, you guard your drum Freya with your life. You do not let anyone play her, and you guard her, and you guard her, and you guard her. So I did. And I knew that was for an initial period, but these days, the last year or so, if I'm working with somebody, I hand them the drum, and they're going to play it. I say, use your fingers only. I'm not giving you a beater to beat on her, but play it and see what rhythm comes out for yourself. Recently in the Reiki group, since I usually bring 2 or 3 drums, I'm happy because other people, as I'm working with somebody, I've seen people go over or just reach over. I'll be working with Freya, and they'll reach over. I need it. I'll give it to them, and they'll work on a different part of the person in the way that they feel they need to. So, yeah, other people in this healing mode of doing something like that, but it's always playing the drum for a healing reason, or it isn't just, hey, let's have a jam session, man. It sounds really cool. Let's rock some beats. No. I don't really take my drums to drum circles because I'm thinking, we're just playing beats. I know we're all connecting and everything like that, but it's just drum circles aren't where my drums go. It's healing circles.
Thank you for sharing that insight.
You said something about, missed the beginning of the live, my guides just told me to ask you about the symbols. Did we just answer that, lady?
So I think you briefly kind of touched on them a little bit. Yeah, if you want to touch on the symbols that you have on your steam bent one, that'd be great. Let people know, the tribes it connects with and
okay.
All that beautiful stuff.
One of the symbols, I can't quite, okay. This one right here, the salmon. That is the salmon of the Still-Guamish tribe, Northwest Washington. That was the first powwow that I went to, the Festival of the Rivers in 2019. I actually asked the tribe, I sent them a letter saying, I'd like to use this logo. And I never heard back from him. And then the gentleman, the elder that made that flute for me, the story stick, we put that logo on his drum bag. And I asked him, because he knew all those people really, really well, I said, hey, they never said anything. And he goes, well, if you didn't hear from them, that's okay, because if it's okay, they'll ignore you. If they're not okay, they'll say, don't do that. So to me, I put the salmon on all my drums as my particular logo, along with my logo, which is the Wakan Drums. one of the reasons I put the salmon there, and this goes back to the person's question of meaning of symbols. At that logo, or that powwow, the second day, Paul came in, and he's the flute maker, 10 years older than me, but he came in with 2 flutes. And I'm surrounded by 3 elders. He pops in, he plays a prayer for me. I get rooted, tears, and he comes out and he says, that song that I just played for you is a prayer, but it came from a salmon in the Stillaguamish River, 100 yards over, just as they died, but it was from the salmon people. They're blessing the drums, they're blessing the intent, and they're blessing your work. I've had prayers like that given to me like that, but that's why I put that salmon on all the drums, because it's the first time I brought those out in public to the tribes, and it was a wonderful reception. That's one of the symbols. The other symbol is, there's one that's here. This is a rainbow goddess. That is a Navajo Hopi entity, very powerful, and she's one of protection. But she's one of the ones that follow me around, and she likes brownies and she likes blueberries. So if you have a plate, you're going to do an offering to Rainbow, put some brownies and some blueberries, because she loves those. She's shown me clips of her in battle, you call it battle or whatever, but you never want to get her pissed off at you, because she's very, very powerful. But she follows the drums very, very closely. There's a bear. That's polar bear. It's one of my entities. There's a crow. There's dragons. There's deer. This is there's a one that is on here, not on this drum, but there's a symbol specifically for Lady Freya. I was on breath medicine. She popped in, and I'm looking up at her, and she had a message for me there. She's part of the drums. Her and Sandy are buddies. Her and Sandy and Rainbow are buddies. Sandy's buddies with all of these. I can't, it doesn't get any better than this, Marcus, I tell you what. I think with these frames that people have, it gives people the opportunity to put their own spirit animals on here, their own symbols of importance. It could be a family, it could be a flower, it could be whatever. But now you can have your own drum with your own particular sacred symbols on them. And I don't know if there's anybody that will do that, except what I'm doing right now. So, it's not a rubber stamp, it's laser engraved. So anyway, that's the question.
Yeah, that's what's so beautiful and unique about what you do, Chuck, is that you really leave that expansiveness and that openness to give people the opportunity to put their signatures, the things that really call to their personal soul onto these drums. And when you think about that from a metaphysical standpoint, you have the drum, you have the wood being represented, the tribes, and all these other beautiful connections. And then on top of that, you get to have your own personal signature of symbols, also metaphysically being engraved and intertwining with those energies. And then as you get to beat on that drum and just let go and sink in, you get to really feel, your own unique essence go through that drum. And, that's really beautiful.
Yeah. It's cool. I mean, it's the amazement factor to me. It never gets lost, as I see new things all the time, or talking with people, and it's just it's what I do 7 days a week mostly. Till somebody spirit-wise says, "Get your ass out and go do something, not drum. Don't work on drums today. Go gold mine or something.
Yeah.
Buy some beers. Just go."
I love those days off.
I don't have that many, but it's kind of my focus these days. It's I've been on my own for 5 years. It's April 18th, 2018, when Sandy passed, and I always looked at it as my birthday, but her ending day. But she's told me numerous times, no, we share a birthday now, because it's your birthday coming in, but it was her birthday going back home, and I like that. metaphor, that description of what that is.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's truly special. Really is. And yeah, I just want to say for everybody out there, if you're curious on like, what else when it comes to the details of the benefits that these drums can have for you, is, drums are basically a sound healing device. You can use these drums to help recalibrate, restructure, and regenerate your cells, your physical being, and as well as your emotions. You can clear out blockages in your emotional body. You can rebalance and recalibrate your chakra energy centers. And you can also help release stored traumas, inner child healing, and things from past lives even as well out of your energetic field. So then you can have more harmony in your being. So these are just, some of the general basic benefits that come with using these wonderful sacred shamanic drums as sound healing devices.
An interesting part about using a drum, sound healing, is you're drumming over somebody. You let your fingers play the rhythm. You don't think I'm going to go dun to dun to dun to dun. And what you find is as you're tapping in, but you find that if you're playing something that isn't quite right, it isn't resonating. And you work, and once you find the frequency that, or the beat that's correct, it syncs. And that's the correct beat for that particular location on the person. You might move up a little bit and it'll change. And so as you're working and using a drum, it's always trying to find the right beat for the right spot for the right purpose. That's kind of what you use them.
I agree. So as we're kind of heading towards the end of the live, I'd like to ask the question to you, Chuck, is what is your vision that you have for the future when it comes to this passion of yours and this dedication with the Wakan drums? And how can we all, as a collective, not just myself, Marcus, how can we all help support you in that?
Well, my vision is, first, is to keep making drums as long as I can, keep helping people with the drums, educate people, sit with people, journey people, healing standpoint, a one-on-one standpoint. There's all that. One of my visions is to have, I was in one of the people I know who's a channel. One thing that's important to spirits, and this was something that they said, because to the spirits, the drums are they're critical, is what the word said. They're critical for a lot of people to really move on their path and to expand. So it's to make the drums. Are we still online? Marcus, are you there? Okay, well, let's see, something's going on. Okay. So yeah, if to help, it would be just spread the word about the drums. If you want to donate hides and skins or something like that, you can always order them from Centralia Fur and Hide and send me drum hides, and I'll put them on other drums. Those parts and pieces are always good to help me make drums. It just kind of popped in my mind. 7 parts, drum hides. I don't know. It's just be the best you are. And everybody, if you be the best you are to other people, and yeah, that's what our job is.
I love it. And yeah, you guys can message Chuck here on Instagram if you have any questions on creating one for yourself, what that would entail, what all you would need to give him regarding information. And if you guys are also curious on catching up on any of these things that he shared to gain further clarity, you can reach out to him as well. And his website is wakandrums.com for everybody out there that would like to take a look at his website. It is Wakan Drums, which is WAKANDRUMS.com. And on there you can find testimonies, all the in-depth details and information regarding the woods, the drums. You can find photographs of different drums and different places that he has been. And you can also find his podcast he has on there, where he's talking about his drums and does a little bit of drumming himself as well. And you guys can also find his story, his intention, and anything else that you could think of regarding Wakan Drums and our brother Chuck Wilson here on his website. And you guys can also look at prices and the different styles that he already has available as well, if you want a Wakan drum today. And Chuck, so what is the best ways for people to get a hold of you out there?
Well, my phone number is on the website. There's email. I do email a lot better sometimes than I do the Instagram, but either way, there's Instagram, there's email, text message. There you go.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Chuck. Do you have any final words or anything else that you feel that you really need to share before we head off?
Just be good, everybody. Help other people.
Wonderful. I love that. Thank you, Chuck. And for everybody else out there that might have been curious, we had the Zoom workshop for the generational clearing inner child healing moved to next Saturday. So next Saturday will be the free Zoom workshop space for inner child healing, and Chuck will be our sacred shamanic guest, and he'll be playing some drum, and I'll
drum a little bit,
guided meditation over the drum in that session. So if you are interested in joining that Zoom workshop next Saturday, feel free to reach out and direct message myself here at Sacred Light 33, and I will send you the Zoom link and let you get filled in on what the space will be like. Thank you all that have supported. Thank you everybody for asking questions and being open to receiving. And big love, sending big love to everybody out there, as this is the final episode, episode 10 of the Process of Clearing Layers online series, season 1. We are wrapping it up, and we will be back for season 2 towards the end of summer. So thank you again, everybody, for the support. It's been a beautiful journey. And this full episode of episode 10, Shamanic Drums, will be on the Sacred Light Healing and Wellness YouTube channel, premiering this Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. So subscribe, get notified, and you can watch the premiere at 8 p.m. Eastern of this live in its full episode. And that's it.
Oh, blessings.
Wholeness and balanced love, everybody.
Rushing is violence, and so is your silence when it's rooted in compliance. To stand firm in loving defiance, make Archer alliance, give voice to the fire. Move people to the beat of the wind, gather yourself and begin to dance the song until it ends. We are winners, champions of the light, forming in numbers and might. Keep the truth close in sight. And woman, medicine man, walking with grace. I know your face and I trust your hand. Medicine woman, medicine man, walking with grace. I know your face and I trust your hand. Find your teachers in the voice of the forest. Unplug, you can't ignore this wisdom of the voiceless. Remedies are bountiful and surround us, from the garden to the farthest. Prayer made of stardust. Find your healing in the music that calls you, the voice that enthralls you. What do you belong to? Eyes out, there's the setting of the sun. Give thanks to each and every one. The lesson is the medicine woman, medicine man, walking with grace. I know your face and I trust your hands. Medicine woman.